Hey, welcome everybody to the Culture Works, our live stream series. We're talking about top of the stack. I love this little segment, by the way. We talk about amazing people writing amazing books. We're lucky enough to have authors come and join us. And we've got one of my favorites, Alex Bailey, who we actually presented together at a recent conference. I was introduced by a dear friend of ours, Chris Rainey. I give a little shout out to HR leaders. If you don't know who they are, look them up. And, the whole idea of this segment is we don't, do it like once a week or whatever. We just do it when we find interesting people and great books. And as well as the wonderful authors that you're going to meet, I've always been a big fan that you should have a book next to your bed that has nothing to do with work or business or just for fun. And Alex and I are both, I just finished Theo of Golden. She's got her copy. It's a charming book. It really is kind of fun. And if you're looking for just a fun read, it's sold a gazillion copies already. It's just very charming. And then, Alex, I found this other one that is just the wackiest book I've ever read, and it's captivating. It's called The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared. And it's sold over 5 million copies. And it is do you know this book?
I recommended that book to you.
Oh, well, I have it because of you. That's right. And it is fabulous. So, every now and again, you need to give your mind a break from like work and business. And these are two really good. Take a break, have some fun. Having said all that, let me introduce you to Alex Bailey. It's not a stretch to say I adore Alex Bailey. She is a wonderful consultant. I'm going to give you all her bios and stuff. The thing I love about Alex, and I tell you, I'm one of the luckiest guys I know. I am surrounded by people that are just good to the core. They have good hearts. They have good bones. You don't have to worry about anything. You just know that they're trying to make the world a better place. So here we go. She is an organizational psychologist, a global keynote speaker, and the CEO and founder of Bailey and French, a company she has grown to 160 people working across 155 countries. That's really impressive, by the way, Alex. All in the service of making work more human. By the way, I just wanted to call out your where did I put that? You've got more letters after your name than anybody I know. Do you want to give us oh, here it is. Hold on. Seriously, you can't miss this. She is shoot. Tell us, give us all your letters, Bailey, Bailey, Alex. It's so impressive.
I have a couple of degrees in psychology and occupational psychology, and I'm the member of various professional bodies for psychologists, certified business psychologists, and institute of directors. So I'm very proud of those professional memberships because they mean a lot to me. The communities that I'm part of, I've learned so much from, and they've supported me throughout my career. So I do use those, which is great.
As always, very gracious. Anyway, her new book she wrote with Carrie O'Neill is called Rapid Reculturing. This is a fascinating concept, by the way. Transforming organizations at pace and scale. It publishes July 15th. When you see this, it may already be out. Be sure to buy a copy. It's available on Amazon and everywhere. There she is. I love that cover.
It has Chester's endorsement on the back.
Yeah, no, listen. To say I'm a big fan is really understating what this means to me to have, Alex with me on this show. At any rate, don't just buy one, buy two. Buy one for you and one for a friend. Anybody can buy just one. But I love the way you open this book, Alex. You make this really bold claim that culture has stopped working as a stabilizing force in the workplace. Engagement is flat, trust is eroding, burnout is at record levels. So what convinced you to write this playbook, the value statements, the engagement surveys, the leadership programs? It just isn't enough anymore, is it? So flesh that out.
It's not enough. And if you think about where some of those came from, working with values as a lever for culture, developing kind of engagement measures to tap into how people are actually feeling fully engaged in the organization. These were brand new kind of innovations to exploring culture, but that was maybe 25 years ago. And the organizations in this world have changed so much since then that whilst those things are still foundationally really important, important. We still need to measure how engaged people are. We still need to have organizational values that hold us to account for what the organization stands for. But the ways of which we're working at the moment and the ways organizations have evolved have completely transformed in that time. So we have to upgrade our way of looking at culture and people and humans in the workplace when everything has become a lot more pressurized, a lot more scrutinized. And now, thankfully, a lot more people care about culture too. So, back when I first started working in this field, 20, 30 years ago, it was a new thing to even think about adding a culture work stream to a big program. And it was all about productivity and profit. And, it was a very new thing to think about organizational commitment or job satisfaction or motivation. These were new levers to think about how we could still increase productivity. But we've moved so much farther forward now. And, leadership programs are so much more targeted than they were before. They're really, really sophisticated. And actually, that means that we need to look at culture in just a new and refreshed way completely.
Yeah. It is so interesting because, you and I have been doing this work virtually at the same time. And we still have leaders in the workplace that did the whole mailroom to the boardroom kind of thing. That's just not the case anymore. People just are not staying there. And so I love that you put rapid culture change. Like it's not like, hey, after 10 years, we'll give you a little pin that you can say you've been with us for 10 years because, when I came into the workplace, if somebody that I was working with had 4 or 5 different jobs, we felt like they were on the run from the FBI or something, right? How many name changes have you had? Now it is so common for people to have 4 or 5 jobs before they hit 30.
Right.
And so talk to me about rapid, because that's the core of the book, right? Like you can't wait, you got to do it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really comes from the early days that Kerry and I worked together 20 years ago. We were exploring new ways of looking at culture at that point in time. And at that point, we were told all the theories and the books and everything that was incorporated into our education around culture at that point in time was all focused on culture change in large global organizations, taking at least 5 to 7 years. And that was quite a common understanding. And so people looked at culture programs with that long-term view of where does the organization want to be in 7 years' time? And how do we actually close that gap and ensure that the culture is supporting the strategy that we need for the future? But organizations have changed so much. We used to face maybe 2 major changes in an organization in a year. And now we're facing at least 9. Everything is changing at once. And it's like we're running on quicksand. We absolutely need to be able to work with the pace with which our working world is moving and evolving. And that means we have to think about culture in a much more rapid way. So look at the things that are much more fluid, much more agile in terms of culture. Some of those foundational roots, like the long-term engagement, looking at the values, those things are still, as I said, vitally important roots for culture, but they're not the things that can change on a daily basis that actually allow us to be the adaptable, flexible human beings and species that we are capable of being.
I love the adaptable species human being, because boy, do you need to be adaptable right now, right? With the speed of change. Well, you talk about these 4 areas that you work on, right? The 4 drivers. And at the heart of the book, these 4 drivers, you have them work together like a flywheel. And I love the idea of the flywheel, where it's a lot of work to get it going. But once you get it going, you can sort of tweak it. So give us the tour. You've got shared purpose, collective mindsets, human energy, probably our favorite, and then human connection. Purpose gives meaning, mindsets give direction, energy gives momentum, and connection gives cohesion. So walk us through the 4, because that really is the idea. If you can get this going and get it going fast, your odds for success go up. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, we don't want to be trying to use new skills in terms of applying cultural evolution if we don't really know what we're looking at in terms of culture. And what we're suggesting is that actually culture is more affected by these 4 drivers than anything else right now in the modern day workplace, and will continue to be with the influence of AI and technology advancement. So, purpose is something that people genuinely you'll either retain people based on the purpose of their role, or you will lose them if they they don't feel it.
Now, let
People,
me jump in there really quick. So you
Mhm,
said purpose of their role. A
mhm,
lot of people, when they will read that headline, will say the purpose of the organization, like how do we impact?
uh-huh.
I love that you went to the purpose of the role. Like, what am I contributing every day, and can I connect the dots? Right?
Absolutely. And it's not just roles. So it is team and organization as well. But I think looking at it at those three levels, I think so many organizations, and if you look at big change programs and how we typically communicate big change programs, often leaders come together and they think about this change and how the vision is going to be communicated and the mission and where we're heading and this meaningful purpose. And they come at it from the organizational lens first and actually forget that human beings are not jumping out of bed in the morning thinking about the organization first. They're thinking about what mug am I going to have my coffee in this morning. They're thinking about how they're going to, think about having a conversation with their children before they get into the office. It's different things that affect humans. And actually, if we can engage with the human being, the individual first, and then think about the team, the ones they're most closely connected to, the ones they care about most, we're more likely to influence the meaningfulness and the purpose that they feel driven by for that whole organizational purpose.
Yeah.
So I think
you work from the inside out, right? You start with the person, team, organization. I love that flow.
yeah,
Okay.
we have.
Collective mindsets.
Collective mindsets. They're so much more adaptable than values. So as I said, values are really important, both organizational values and personal values. But with so many different generations in the workplace right now, we have 4 or even 5 in some workplaces. Actually, it's going to be less and less common for people to share values. So it's not going to be so easy to kind of say, here's our organizational values. How do our personal values fit into those? In the same way that they used to be, where actually we were a lot more similar with the people we worked with than we are now.
Homogeneous, yeah.
Right. And this great diversity is something that should be celebrated. And so we need to bring everybody's thinking into all of the work that we do. And one way to do that is almost to let go a little bit of what the values are that hold us back, because yes, they guide us personally in terms of the decisions and the actions we take. But collective mindsets is something that you can choose, and you can choose to change it in every 30 or 10 seconds if you want to. You can choose it every 10 minutes, every hour, or you could just say to our team, what is the collective mindset that we need to get to this goal this month if we need to improve service quality or productivity? And actually we can all come together around that regardless of what our values are and say, actually, yes, we're all going to share this mindset in the ways that we are working through this month to get to this team goal. So it's much more flexible, and it's much more immediate, and it can change because we are humans and we have a choice. So we can choose to change our mindset at any point in time.
I think words matter, right?
Yeah.
Shakespeare, what arose by any other name, right? I really like the way you're changing the dialogue, where you say it's mindset, because it is, and it breaks down some of those silos of the generational differences, right? Like the baby boomers think all the Gen Zs are lazy, right? Or whatever your perception is. When you say, hey, no, it's a mindset. Our mindset has to be this for this client or this product development or this launch. It's really brilliant. Brilliant. Now, I also like the way that you substitute human energy as opposed to engagement.
Yeah, I think we've become very savvy to engagement, and we understand that engagement increases our discretionary effort towards the organization. So we understand why organizations measure engagement. But actually, our daily levels of energy are what affects our motivation and our ability to perform and sustain performance over time. And actually, if we can monitor that differently within teams, within groups, within business units, within functions and organizations, we can actually work differently with energy than we can with engagement. It's not about being clear in our communications. It's about giving people the space to be heard, to be seen, so that they feel more excited to be innovative, so that maybe they have more psychological safety to voice their ideas. And it's that curiosity that shows you energy. It's when people go into a meeting and they challenge and they wake up and they think about what could be different. How can we interpret this in a new way? How can we use the evidence and the data to show a different pathway that could be even better for us? So we need people to keep their energy and to keep their human switched on, really, so that they are, consciously thinking and engaging with the work that they're doing on a daily basis. And that's what we're tapping into here.
Perfect. Because, Adrian Gossick, my wonderful co-author, and we talk about the engagement scores, and we've been talking about it for over 20 years, and they're consistently going down. So we need
Yeah.
to change the conversation around that, right? That
Right.
it's not about engagement, it's about energy. And again, back to your purposeful work. Am I connecting the dots? Okay, number 4, human connection. You talk about that that connection gives us cohesion.
Mm. Culture is humans together, and that for me is just so important. We are, as a species, I talk about humans as a species a lot because we are one species on this planet and there are multiples, and we need to think about ourselves in that way in terms of our abilities and our capabilities, our skills, our possibilities for growth. And as a human species, we are interdependent and we are interconnected. We do not serve well on our own, and loneliness is increasing. You see the stats. The numbers are out there. It is so scary. With dispersed ways of working, people are more connected and yet more kind of disengaged and lonely than ever before. And that really shows through that we are missing something in terms of what human connection really means to people and what people need to function really well as a human at work and beyond work, because this is huge. This is absolutely about our lives. And tapping into that has got to be core of any people strategy.
Yeah. Do you think the pandemic, I mean, that global event really sort of set the stage for separation? I mean, this is wonderful that you and I can talk on video chat. So
Mhm.
many employers still have remote employees that they don't really feel part of the team because they're really not in the building.
Mhm.
We're not going for coffee. We're not going for lunch. We're not celebrating a birthday with a cake or whatever. And we used to say, oh, that's kind of fluffy stuff. Actually, it was pretty important stuff to keep
Yeah.
people connected. So what's your perspective on that? Like, what can a leader that's watching this interaction with you and I, what can they do Tuesday to increase that connection? Is it simply getting everybody back in the workplace? It's got to
No.
be more than that, right?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about being really intentional. So what is the level of connection you need for the work and the team that you have? Is it important? Chester, I would love to be with you in the room having this conversation, right? That would be fantastic. It's not viable for me right now. We both travel globally. We're very busy. So I love the fact that we can still connect and do this, even though we can't be in the same room. But if I was given the choice, that would be my choice time over again. And I think it's about the fact that, I still prefer to be in person for anything, because I get an energy of people. I love seeing people's body language, absorbing what's really going on in the room, who's talking to each other. I like looking sideways, not always in front. And I think there's something important about being able to kind of check in with each other in the room. And I think if the work requires you to work really closely together, that's really important. And that's when I think leaders can be intentional about choosing when to prioritize in-person work and when to allow that collaboration to happen more naturally online and digitally. But the intention is there. So not just falling to habit of everything being virtual and everything being online, but actually making that intentional effort for, no, we haven't connected for a while. Actually, I'm feeling people's energy differently. I'm not seeing so many questions come up in the chat. Maybe I need to get everybody together in the room again. And just recognizing when it's right for them and when it's right for their team, if it's possible. Now, obviously, it's not all possible for everyone in global organizations.
Right.
But
Hey, let's take a little bit of a break here. Tell people where they can find your wonderful book, where they can find you, and all that great stuff.
thanks, Chester. So yeah, the book is released and it's available right the way across the world on Amazon. So it comes through wherever you are in your local country, language, and opportunity. And it's also available right the way across the US in Barnes and Noble, right the way across the UK and Europe in Waterstones, as well as several other great booksellers right the way across. Predominantly the US, we have a variety of book chains available throughout the US. Yeah.
And buy two. Anybody can buy one. Hey, what I love to ask authors this question. It's a little off the track, but is there a part of the book that was like your favorite part of the book? And I will tell you a cute story. I did ask this of an author one time. I said, well, what's your favorite part of the book? And she said, actually, my favorite part of the book didn't make it into the book. as you know, not everything makes the cut, right? So do you have a favorite part of the book that when you wrote that and you went, yeah, this is cool?
I think it was, and I'm not necessarily sure whether it's because of the content or because of where it was. So for me, it was the conclusion, because we have been working together, both Kerry and I, we've been working together and separately for 20 years on the content that's gone into this book. So this is not just from one experience of one organization. This is so many different experiences come together. And we've been having conversations and talking about it for so long. So by the time we kind of came together and actually wrote a conclusion, that was the first time we'd ever written a conclusion of our work, because it had been ongoing for so many years. So for me, that was a real kind of light bulb moment of like, wow, actually, there's like a punctuation here. There is a way to kind of go, this is it. And this is what we've experienced, and this is what we know works, and this is what we want to share with the world. And I think that point really stood out for us when we wrote it. And I had imagined conclusion would be very, very long. I'd have to go through everything all over again, but actually it wasn't. It came out very naturally from both of us, and we punctuated it, and it was like, bam, that's it. That's our conclusion. And I think that for me was just a real big milestone.
Great. Yeah. The culmination of all your work. And there it is right there. Excellent. Hey, I want to talk about, you lean into Martin Siegelman's idea of prospection, this, giving back to giving meaning, painting the picture of the future. Like, where are we going? Are you finding that's more important now than ever?
Yeah, and I think it is massively important. And this whole opportunity to think about collective imagination, there is, in terms of Martin Seligman's approach to prospecting, he really gave an understanding of how humans can look to the future and adapt their behavior to the future more so than the past. And if you think about, maybe in a real life example. So if I was heading to a great friend's wedding in, say, a month's time, I might spend more time focusing on my hair, my clothes, what I'm going to wear, because I know I'm going to be in pictures with lots of people I care about. They're going to be shared everywhere. And I might be really thinking about how I'm going to show up in these visuals that at this friend's wedding, as well as obviously caring very much about the loving unity that they're going to create. Right. But actually, people tend to change their behavior far more in the anticipation of event than they do on the reflection of a past event. So I'm more likely to do that than look at pictures of a past event where I go, oh, I didn't really like what I was wearing then, and I didn't think it really suited me, or I don't think it really put myself across well. We're much more likely to behave in anticipation of something. And I think as humans, we haven't really adopted that thinking in organizations in the way that we are operating with learning and development, with culture, with people. We're always constantly looking and reflecting back, oh, this didn't go so well. How can we do this better in the future? But it's actually looking ahead to the future and predicting what that future might be and how differently it could be from anything we've experienced before. And as humans, we're actually incredibly capable to do that. But it's almost like we've become very tied into these habits of working on what happened in the past, reflecting on the past, changing what we've done before in order to look at the future, rather than just focusing entirely on what is the possibility, what can we prepare for, what can we anticipate, what can we predict, and how can we lead into that really confidently.
Yeah, no, I love that word, prospection, as opposed to retrospection. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so culture at pace. We're going over time, and by the way, delightfully so. So, what do you say to the leader who's listening who says, "Look, I believe you." To your point, I don't have 3 to 7 years to change my culture, right? Mm-hmm. So, if we're truly living our best culture, let's say a year from now, what are we doing differently day to day? Where would you tell people to start?
Yeah, and we need to start small, because culture is big, and culture is everyone, and culture is us. So actually, we need to really think about how we adopt that for ourselves. But actually, the first way is to think about ourselves first. So any leader needs to be able to adopt and approach, any kind of cultural evolution with a role model perspective in terms of taking those first steps. But one good way I like to look at this is just the 10%. So sometimes when you think about needing to change things, they feel enormous, they feel huge, and they feel really insurmountable. It's very hard to start. But actually, if you say to people, you say to yourself and you say to your team, okay, this is one huge change we need to make in our team. We need to, completely change our quality of service delivery, for example. But actually, what is 10% that we could improve here and now this week? actually people have much more ability to feel that they can move something forward 10%. And that once they get going, when that 10% grows very quickly to the 20, to the 50, to the 70, to the 100.
Yeah.
But it's just about giving people the incentive, the motivation to take that very first step and the smallest step, so that they feel comfortable, they can progress, because people love to feel accomplishment. They love to feel like they've got momentum on a daily basis. You know,
Check the box, right? I'm moving forward, right?
100%.
It is so funny because, like you, I work with a lot of young people and high potentials and so on, and I tell them, look, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
Medicine is getting better and better. You're going to probably live to 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Pace yourself. You got time, right? My mentor, Marshall Goldsmith, gave me some great advice on the coaching spectrum. He says, one of the worst things that can happen to somebody is they have a tremendous amount of success when they're very young.
Yeah.
Because where do you go from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of prospection, let's map it out. Let's just take little bites. You don't have to win the gold medal before you turn 15. It's fine. You got time. Really quick, you don't need to give us any organizational names or something, but where did this work really well for you, where you came in and they had a whole cultural thing and you walked them through? Because you have, I saw you in action. I mean, you have a very robust methodology that you put people through. So again, you don't have to mention a name unless you need a good shout out for a client there. Go ahead. But where did it work?
I think there was a large organization that Kerry and I worked with together, and we've done that for several, so I'm not naming anyone. But actually, it really strikes my memory because it was new to get people really talking in full kind of human dialogue. A lot of people had spent a lot of time in their heads, a lot of time isolated, a lot of time in teams with leaders who'd never had any support for management or leadership training, and were really finding their feet at every single point. So it was quite a kind of a slow pace of change in the organization, and we really started by getting everyone talking. And for me, dialogue is at the heart of being human. So we think very differently when we're speaking out loud and in conversation than we do when we're on our own just thinking to ourselves. We even use a different part of our brain. And actually what that means is that we are going to debate and challenge our thinking and stretch ourselves in our humanness far more when we're with other people. And actually that's the first big building block and step, but it is retained throughout all the cultural work that we've ever done, is getting people talking, even if it's challenging, but getting them into a situation where people can talk at every level. So, this is not about kind of rolling out or cascading things with different levels of hierarchy. This is about opening up, but giving people the platform to talk, the tools to find the right words to start. Normally, when you get people started, they're quite happy to keep going.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Again, back to that human connection. So we would be remiss if we didn't say AI somewhere in this conversation. How do you balance that human element with AI? I mean, Christy, my chief of staff, my everything behind the scenes, wonderful, friend and colleague. We're both big fans of AI. We use it as thought starters. We use it in a lot of ways. There is that balance, though, and you do talk about it.
Yes. And again, it comes back to being intentional and being conscious about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you're doing it with. I love AI. I use it in lots of different ways and trying to augment it into my whole role as a CEO, but also as a psychologist. And it is phenomenal in terms of the speed, the depth of data, the analysis that's possible. And we can pass that all on, right, to our clients and everyone we work with. But it is about making sure that we're not losing our humanness. So when we send that email that we know we've read it and we think, oh, it sounds really good because this, AI wrote it for me. But then you look at it and in your heart, you've got that little instinct. It doesn't really sound like me.
Right.
That's when we need to pause and stop and go, okay, hang on, strike that. We need to start again. By the way, yes, this is what I'm thinking. I agree with you. Absolutely. Because we feel it and we see it and we read it. And if I get an email that I know doesn't sound anything like the person, I feel a little cut off.
A little cheated. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Think about me.
Right. I've done that. And you'll go to do the edit and you go, I don't think I've ever used that word before in my entire life, Exactly. And it's going to come across as very perfunctory and a cheat.
And it's that we lose it.
Tell us again where we can find you and your website and all that good stuff, and then we'll get to the quick hits. It's my favorite part.
Okay, so we have a website for the book, rapidreculturing.com. So you can find out lots of information about both myself and Kerry, my co-author there. She's a fantastic chief people officer who's worked internally in so many large organizations on transformation. So a real difference of experience in and out of large organizations. And yes, Bailey & French is my consulting organization. We're global. You can find us on baileyandfrench.com. I'm on LinkedIn, as you are, Chester, as Chris Rainey is, who I am, a big fan of, who introduced us, and many other mutual connections. So I'm very happy to have conversations and explore discussion about the book and culture and leadership with anybody if you want to connect with me there.
And she's a great keynote speaker. You got a big event coming up. She's wonderful on stage.
Thank you, Chester. That means a lot coming from you.
Really quick, and we'll wrap up here. What book is at the top of the stack for you right now? Is it Theo of Golden, or what else are you reading?
Well, like you, I do like to have a book this is my nice book, my Theo of Golden. So I'm kind of reading that when I have a moment away from work. But no, at the moment I am reading another book from another friend, actually, Chris Cummings, The Wellbeing Centered Workplace, that was just released. And it's all about well-being now. So this is I think there's a relearning going on in the business world of what worked before, kind of 5-10 years ago, isn't really current. We need to be up to date with what's going on right now. And so for me, it's a real insightful book. I'm dipping in and out of it quite regularly for different things to think about how are people really experiencing well-being in the workplace, because we know it has to be sustainable to keep performance high.
And I like what you said there, dip in and out. There's a chapter that you need to kind of refresh, and you can go get it. Okay. Best culture you've ever seen up close. What made it work?
I think it was leaders recognizing the power that they had in a hierarchy and not allowing that to get in the way. So very conscious leadership around inviting people in to speak, to hear, to listen, so that everyone felt like they were actually really valued as a human, and that the hierarchy wasn't kind of putting a barrier in the way of what people could say and share.
Excellent. Okay. Most overrated idea in corporate culture.
Okay, so I said before, I think organizational values are important foundation and roots, but I do think now they're quite overrated in terms of people thinking that they can influence culture just by refreshing the cultural values of the organization. I think that's a really overrated idea. I think it was a good idea when it was kind of first innovated into organizations, and a really important part and a very important thing, what attracts people to organizations, why people stay, and they do feel it, and it does have an impact on culture, but it's not the only thing.
Okay, last one. Finish this sentence. Work feels meaningfully human when ...
When we stay switched on consciously.
Excellent. Hey, listen, this has been a delight. I knew it would be. Her name, as you can tell, is Alex Bailey. Her book is Rapid Reculturing, Transforming Organizations at Pace and Scale. She wrote it with her good friend, Kerry O'Neill. It's available everywhere. You can have a lot of fun with your organization. Not only is the book great, but when you read the book, you're going to say, you know what, we got to get Alex in here to really teach us what's in the book. And I've seen her in action. She's fabulous. She's my friend. I endorse the book, so you would think I'm crazy about it, and I am. But Alex, so good to see you, even though there's an ocean in between us. Thank you so much for writing this book and taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Chester. You're an absolute wonderful inspiration, and I feel very privileged to be here on the top of the stack. So thank you for inviting me in, especially with all your other amazing authors that you've shared, and your incredible work with Adrian too. So thank you. Oh, wait.